Dr. Karan Singh.
Mr. Deputy Chairman, I rise in great anguish and distress because what is happening in Nepal is a matter not only of great suffering for the people of Nepal, but also for the people of India who share with Nepal age-old cultural, religious, economic, geographical, civilizational, dharmic links. So we both of us share the Himalayas which Kalidasa in the opening of his Kumara Sambhava describes Astuttarsyam Dishidevatatma Himalayo Nam Nagadhiraja Purvaha Paro Toya Vididhi Vigahaya Stitaha Prasiddhaya Manavanda. The great Himalayas that for thousands of years have sheltered us, we in Nepal, both of us, we share that. We share the language, we share Nepali, we share Hindi. We share all sorts of relationships. Roti beti ka kehte hain jo. We share economic relationships. We share our religious, Pashupati Dati is there, Lumbini is there. So two of the great world religions, Hinduism and Buddhism, are both flourishing in Nepal and in India. And so it is truly tragic that, as my good friend and colleague Pawan Verma has pointed out, our relations should now have reached such a stage where we are told now that anti-Indian feelings are growing in Nepal. I mean, it is astounding that this should have happened. What the reasons are in fact fairly well known. I will not go into a long history, but there has been a long history of internal conflict in Nepal. I think we've got to keep in mind, Nepal has always had a lot of internal conflict. And that conflict inevitably with our 1750 kilometer open border spills over into India. 5 states, as were mentioned, are impacted. Now, sir, this particular chapter began when then Prime Minister Dr. Manmohan Singh sent me as his personal envoy to King Gyanendra in April 2006. And I took a letter. And our advice, our genuine advice was that as a result of this prolonged civil war that was going on in Nepal, it was important for the king to hand over power to the 7-party alliance, to a leader of their choice. I delivered the letter, I delivered the message personally, and I must say to his credit that he accepted it gracefully and implemented it within 24 hours of my getting there. From then, 9 years have subsequently elapsed. And in these 9 years, there have been several governments, there have been 2 national elections, there's been an interim constitution, there's been a great deal of time was there. It isn't as if the thing is being rushed. Lots of time was taken. But most unfortunately, no national consensus in Nepal was able to be reached. And there I am inclined to agree with Pawan Verma when he says that although we did try and help in many ways, we were not really able to get them to it was an internal matter, fair enough. It's a sovereign country. But nonetheless, it is in our national interest that there should be stability in Nepal. There should be a strong, stable and progressive Nepal. And despite all our efforts, some of us did it informally, some were done formally. I remember in the previous government also there were attempts made. But we were not able to get them to come to some kind of national consensus. And as a result of this, a constitution was pushed through which alienated a large section of the population of Nepal. A large section. The Badeshis themselves are 51% of the Nepali population. I'm not going to go into the actual details of how many people are aggrieved or not. But the fact of the matter is that the Madeshis are extremely aggrieved. In fact, the Madeshi leaders who were here and who met some of us, they now feel that if this present constitution is continued with, the very integrity and identity of the Madhesh is going to be destroyed. Kaha ek Madhesh, ek Pradesh. At one time there was a demand that the Madheshi should have one state, if not two. And today we are told that the whole Madhesh has been sliced up in such a way that except for one state, they are going to be marginalized in the rest of the country. The assurances that they received in the interim constitution, the strange thing is, Mr. Deputy Chairman, that we were hoping that from the interim constitution, the final constitution would be a progression. But what has happened in fact is that the final constitution has reneged on a number of the points that were given to that were offered to the Madheshis, upon which they won the election. There's great talk that they're 2/3 majority. We accept that, we honor that. But that 2/3 majority was received because of the assurances that were given to the Madheshis. And that's why they voted for them. But those assurances, I'm not going to go into a long list of what happened. There was an 8-point settlement agreement in 2007 between the Madheshi Morcha and the Nepal government headed by G.P. Koirala. That has been completely jettisoned. The whole proportional representation theory has not been accepted. Even on marriage, there is discrimination against those people. And if somebody happens to marry in India, then also there is discrimination as far as citizenship is concerned. So the Madheshis have for many, many centuries been looked down upon in that country, unfortunately. Now with the new democratic Nepal, the hope was that they would get an equal share, a fair share at least. But what has happened? How is it that the Madheshis themselves now are blocking the passages to their own country, blocking the roads? I know India is being blamed, India is doing a blockade. The External Affairs Minister very strongly refuted that. I'm sure she will again. The fact of the matter is that there is unrest there, and as a result of that, there has been a terrible attrition in Nepal. Nepal had not even begun getting over the earthquake trauma last year, and now we find that whether it is gas, whether it is fuel, whether it is medicines, supplies, schools are closed, hospitals are tottering. The winter is not only coming, the winter is already there. Don't forget, it's not Delhi, it's Nepal. And the winter has already started. And what suffering the people there are undergoing. So it's a massive humanitarian problem. It's not only a political problem. It is a humanitarian problem. And we will see, if this goes on like this, we will see men, women and children actually succumbing to their distress. Because if you cannot get met. Now, why other routes cannot be opened? Can we airlift? I do not know. The External Affairs Minister no doubt will enlighten us as to why we are not ensuring that essential supplies reach Nepal. It could be an airlift. We have these huge aircraft in the Indian Air Force. We can carry medicines, critical medicines. So to give any sort of impression that we are not empathetic with the plight of the people of Nepal in this hour of crisis, I think is very, very unfortunate. Indian intervention has taken place earlier. You remember when the Ranas were overthrown? Nobody would remember, but perhaps you must have read. I don't think there's anybody here. Perhaps Sharadji and others would know. When the Ranas were overthrown in 1950, when King Tribhuvan fled from his palace took refuge in the Indian embassy, at that time India had intervened, and as a result there was a new dispensation. We intervened now when King Gyanendra had to give up power, but unfortunately this time the intervention has not been effective. If India did intervene at all, were there mixed signals given during the election between various parties or various agencies of the government or the ministries and so on? And why was it that we find ourselves in this position today when the last minute visit of the Foreign Secretary is a very fine officer, and we also have a very competent and eloquent Foreign Minister, but to send the Foreign Secretary on the 18th and 19th of September, when the Constitution had already been passed and was going to be promulgated on the 20th. what sort of message? It was, we were asking for some kind of a snub. I mean, it was such an obviously undiplomatic, shall we say, or unwise thing to do. Whatever we wanted to do, we should have done much earlier than that. You cannot go in the very last minute. They've passed the constitution, and at the last minute we go and say, no, ab isko nahi karna, you shouldn't promulgate it tomorrow. You know, that it goes against all norms of wisdom. Forget diplomatic finesse, I'm talking of wisdom. And what has happened? The euphoria that was generated when the Prime Minister went. I must say the Prime Minister's 2 visits were very well received in Nepal. His speech in Nepal was particularly well received. I believe he spoke partially in Nepali also. My Nepali is not very good, although I'm a Jawai of Nepal. I should be speaking fluently after all these years. But he apparently spoke in Nepalese. It was a tremendous euphoria. We were very happy. It's not a question of party politics. If our Prime Minister is welcomed by the people of another country, we feel good about it. What has happened? The whole euphoria has disappeared. And today we are told is every newspaper in Kathmandu is full of anti-Indian venom. The whole society is up in arms. Not the whole of, let us be clear. It's not only the Kathmandu Valley that counts. We have the Madeshis. They themselves are in distress. We have the Kathmandu Valley, which is the hub of Nepal. We have the brave Gorkhas. Sir, we must remember there are 50,000 Gorkhas in the Indian Army, at least 25% of which are from Nepal. Citizens of Nepal, 25,000. Citizens of Nepal are giving their lives to defend us on the battlefields, or whether it is Kargil or wherever it is. They have given lives. The Gorkha regiments are the pride of the Indian Army. So there are 2 lakh Gorkha pensioners, Indian Army pensioners in Nepal. So 60 lakh Nepalese work and earn their living in India. So, you know, it's all right. They can turn around and say India is interfering. You can't put the blame on India. You can't solve your own problems, then you put the blame on India. Maybe we are to blame to some extent. I'm not saying that we are blameless. But I would very strongly urge, sir, and there's lots that can be said, but I know a lot of other people are going to speak on this. I would very strongly urge, cutting across all party lines. As Pavan had said when he opened his speech, we are not speaking in any polemic terms. We are not trying to make political points. We are trying to bring to the notice of the nation the great pain and distress that we all feel with what is happening in Nepal. And in this deep crisis, we would urge the government to use its good offices in whatever way possible to persuade the ruling parties and the government of Nepal at least to accept what was given in the interim constitution. So how can you go back on an interim constitution? How can you go back on solemn assurances that were given to the Madeshis and turn around and say, no, this is not acceptable now? They must do it, and they must do it soon. And we must do whatever we can to see that the ingress and egress is opened, to see that immediate supplies arrive. It is a crisis situation. We are already now in December. The snows will already have started in the areas. And if children start dying for lack of medicines, or lack of food, or lack of other essential commodities, the karmic debt will also be upon us, so let us remember that. So I would urge the government, please move in this matter rapidly. If there's anything that anybody can do, any political party can do, any individual can do, we are all prepared to help. But it is the Nepalese government really upon whom the more onus lies for solving this problem. Because it is their problem. It is their problem. We want to help. We cannot solve it for them, but we can help them. And so therefore my appeal to all sides and in Nepal is to show some flexibility, to sit together, to talk the problems, and to try and see what is fair and what is right, and to do that. And for that, Mr. Deputy Chairman, I'm sure the whole House will join me in expressing our deep sympathy with the people of Nepal who are suffering, and in hoping for a very rapid and very effective solution to the problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Karan Singh.